know, we want to start off with giving an update on our crime numbers. I think we've been a very transparent department over the past 4 years. And while we recognize that, you know, crime is still high, it's a major concern within the community, that we're battling two things. We're battling actual crime numbers and the perception of crime. And we'll always have to work to reduce that perception of crime and make sure that the community knows exactly where they're at. You know, I know that crime is too high, like I stated, but today we're going to see the great progress that has been made since 2017 in terms of crime. And I think the biggest thing that we're still facing as a community is our homicides. But I'm happy to say that we have more than 150 murder suspects taken off the street in the last 15 months. And we're starting to see a good positive trend in homicides over the past 6 months. And we know that this could go up at any point in time, but we're seeing a lot of positive movement, which is encouraging to us, and we're hoping that it'll be encouraging to the citizens of the city of Albuquerque as they see where the progress is being made. But they know that the Albuquerque Police Department recognizes that there's still much to be done. We want to make this one of the safest cities, and we will continue to be proactive, go out and to take as many individuals to jail as possible. We're also excited to see additional funding from the legislature and the governor to help us crack down with offenders who have felony warrants, and we're looking forward to the conclusion of this legislative session. We're also aggressively targeting repeat offenders based off the success from our detective academy, the success in the homicide unit. We've restructured some departments divisions within the department, and we stood up a new division with Commander Kyle Hartsock, who's going to talk a little bit about the career criminal prosecution project and how we want to make sure we keep these repeat offenders in jail. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gilbert and kind of go through this like we did other presentations before, where he walks everybody through and we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks, everybody. So I first want to start off by saying that the presentation we're giving today is a little different than you've seen in the last couple of years, and that's because we switched to NIBRS type reporting to the FBI, which is the new method, back in 2018. While it's a more comprehensive reporting system, you can't compare crimes to previous years automatically, just because of the way it's structured. However, we did learn that the FBI has been, since most agencies aren't yet on NIBRS, the FBI has been kind of re-engineering them to show them the way they're shown in the past under summary reporting. So that's what you have here. If you go to the FBI website, you'll see the same numbers on the website for 2017. You could go back to 2011 if you want to compare further back, but so up until 2021, I think, and then the 2022 numbers are what the FBI reported to us based on what we reported in NIBRS. So kind of a technical discussion, but I just wanted to let you know. We will also be reporting the NIBRS numbers on the website as well, so both sets of data will be there if you want to take a look. But with that, we'll go next slide. So this is the violent crime. So if you remember, the NIBRS looks at crimes against person, and there's different categories. This is more kind of clear cut, I think. So violent crime going back, and 2017 is a key year because that's the year that most of these crimes hit their highest point, I think, especially property crime and violent crime. So if you look at 2017 and what's happened since then, it's been pretty steady throughout. Last year there was an uptick to 8,000 incidents, and then encouragingly it went down for the first time, even going back to 2017. A lot of those, obviously, homicides are the big number, but it's not a big number when you're putting it in this category of violent crime. So 120 homicides is not much compared to the thousands of, and so this reflects aggravated assaults, as we'll see in a little bit, that have also kind of gone up. But robbery and some of the other violent crime categories have gone down significantly. Here's the other big category, which is property crime. You've seen in the past, we really targeted auto theft in particular, but also property crime in the past, and that's gone down 40% over 6 years. From last year to this year is the first time we had a little bit of a bump, I would say, and that's due partly to auto theft. It did go up this past year, and mostly in kind of certain parts of the city, but I don't know if you had anything to say about that.
You know, I think this is important because in 2017, when I returned as a deputy chief of the field, our #1 priority was property crimes. And if you go back to those early 2018 press conferences, we talked about how we were going to attack property crimes, we were gonna attack auto theft, and how those numbers are way too high. And later on we'll get into some auto theft numbers, but I think it's important to recognize that this is the crime that affects most people in the city of Albuquerque. And we had been shortchanging ourselves in a lot of ways because we weren't able to compare 2017. And I always said if there was a way to compare 2017, people would see the big advancement that we've made as a department as we worked a lot of operations. As those numbers started to go down in 2018, that was the development of PRT teams. That was the development of our first set of operations to go out to get individuals with warrants, and getting the field services, really to start taking a lot of calls and working to curb crime. So you see the big improvement from 17 to 18 that we've never been able to show until we discovered this page on the FBI website. And I think it should be encouraging to the citizens of the city of Albuquerque that there has been progress over the past 6 years. I know there'll always be critics, but I guarantee you in 2017, there are also people there is unreported crime, as in 2022 there's unreported crime. But that's a huge difference. And I think that there's a lot of positive movement in the right direction. And when you take into account that we've reduced response times by an hour, we're answering the phone faster at dispatch, that also plays a part to say that the amount of unreported crime is probably going down as opposed to what it was in 2017 when we were height of a lot of issues that were going on in the police department.
So these are just the numbers year by year for each one of these. And this just shows kind of how much what the chief just said. Property crime is a much bigger crime, affects more people than violent crime. But you see the decrease here, and violent crime pretty steady throughout. So this is a look at violent crime by category, how the FBI defines it. So you can see the percentage differences here, and as I said earlier, actually homicides have gone up significantly. Ag assaults have gone up, got lower this year compared to 2021, which is encouraging, but a lot of those are, and the other thing that's not in these categories exactly is shootings and shootings with injuries. So gun violence is a major problem. It's been prominent homicides and ag assaults, and kind of the one category that's gone up over the last 6 years. Again, here's the murders. This is the one I just want to say that this is the one thing that's a little different than that's what's on the website, the FBI website. For 2021, they had 125. I'm not sure exactly why that is. It might have been some other justifiable homicides or something that was counted differently, but we know internally that the number is 110, but 120 is accurate, and these are kind of within one. And rapes are down significantly over 6 years and over last year, which is a good, shows progress. I think rapes are one of the categories, kind of like domestic violence too, that we worry that they're underreported by victims. And I think as we talk about the new division shortly, we'll talk about addressing some of those other categories. Robbery, something we had initially some very good success after 2017. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about robberies.
No, I think when we came back in 2017, there was a big focus. We knew we had good robbery numbers, but it was hard for us to show the first numbers that were always showing up because we didn't have the ability to compare to 2017. We're always 2018 to 2019, and you don't see the decrease in that 2 year time frame that you see from 17 from before. And this goes back to that whole issue that we had in being able to explain numbers prior to 2018 because of the switch to the different reporting systems. So you could clearly see here that since 2018 crime has gone down, especially robbery, and that's one of those crimes that is a violent crime that you're looking at. We have almost 1,500 less violent crimes in terms of just robberies alone. We did have a surge during 2021, like most of the country, and you can see that last year we started working on getting the numbers down. And I can tell you the first 2.5 months of this year, that number is trending down even more, and we hope that we could continue the momentum we have on that.
And here's the aggravated assaults that I mentioned earlier. So this is the one with homicides, the one number that has gone up continuously until this year. It's dropped for the first time. So we'll see what happens in 2023, especially with the shootings. And then here's the larger category of property crime. As you saw from the earlier graph, it's just down in every single category and significantly. Let's go look at burglary. So here's burglary. It's nice to see just consistent progress every year. It's down 39%. Larceny, thefts, same thing, a big drop that first year. Motor vehicle theft is, someone breaking into vehicles and driving. So that is one that increased year over year this past year, and that could be for a lot of reasons. But one of the concerning things is people breaking in and stealing firearms is one of the big ones. And then arson jumped up in 2020. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's back down to about 70.
And if you look back towards the auto theft one, I think that was the number one concern of citizens of the city of Albuquerque when we came back. And you could see that there's a 27% decrease in 2017 to 2022, which 2022 actually had an increase, so it was higher than that before. Last year was a tough year auto theft-wise across the nation. I just recently read a couple articles where there's a big concern because I think they talked about over 1 million cars being stolen last year. And I think this is where, we need help. We need help in a lot of different ways. We've done a good job of trying to advertise that don't leave cars warming up in your driveway. Don't leave keys in your ignition. But I think there's also some responsibility of auto dealers. There are some cars that are so easy to steal. We're seeing it with two particular makes that have become so easy to steal, Hyundais and Kias. And we also know that nationwide they're trying to hold some of these auto dealers accountable, and I commend everybody for that, because there are ways for us to combat auto theft, and the easier it is to steal a car, the more cars we're going to have stolen. So hopefully we can continue to make progress on that, but that is a big success for us when you look at where we were in 17 till now.
And so that's the end of the presentation. Before we go to questions, we're going to have Commander Hartsock just talk a little bit about his division and what he hopes to accomplish.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Commander Kyle Hartsock. Hartsock is how you spell my last name. The Chief has created a new investigative division called the Investigation Enhancement Division. And what it's taking is the bulk of APD's community-based detectives, they're called impact detectives, and bringing them with a more centered focus on what types of crimes we're investigating, and combining our Shield Unit and Court Services, which are the groups inside APD that provide basically all the information to the District Attorney's Office so they can help prosecute cases, and helps officers in Metro Court and judges with information on what's happening in investigation. What we're hoping to do is increase the type of person that we're assisting the DA's office in filing detention motions on. We think more people should be detained in jail for some of these violent crimes, and the way we're going to attack that is by giving as much information as possible to the prosecutor and the judges so they can make these decisions. For example, a lot of times all the prosecutor and a judge has to review 5 days after an arrest is just the criminal complaint from the officer that night of the arrest. What they might not understand is that same person is listed in 1, 2, or 5 other APD reports causing other mischief. Maybe they just weren't charged yet. They're suspected of it. Maybe they're having mental health contacts with us, and if the judge had that information, they can make a different decision than they had in the past. So we want to equip the judges with more information to make these decisions. The only way they're going to get that is through the prosecutors. So the DA's office has graciously allowed us to move some of our personnel into their building so that now the DA's office will have APD persons housed inside their office. This will just greatly speed up how quick we can share information back and forth with our partners. We're also moving some of our employees into Metro Court, so the court itself can now have direct access to APD and some of our systems and resources and processes to take a lot of the wait and lag time out of the justice system. We hope this will be better outcomes for the victims and make the community safer by speeding these processes up.
Are there specific crimes that this division will focus on, or is it just any crime?
Impact detectives for the cop part, they handle right now approximately 60 different criminal statutes that are just wide ranging. Everything from drive-by shootings, road rage incidents, felony level domestic violence, arson, burglary, property crimes. They handle a really wide area of cases. They're really our community detectives. They are affecting the largest amount. So they already exist, but we're going to partner them up closer now with these other systems, kind of what we did in homicide, so that they're partnering up and working with these other systems a little bit better. Yeah.
Yes. Are you taking questions now, or are you?
Sure.
I just want to close with one thing though, real quick, is, I want to thank the mayor for his investment in the Albuquerque Police Department. The success you're seeing is based off of a lot of different ways, and sometimes it's not just financial investments. We made a decision when I took over as chief that we were going to push back a little bit on our DOJ process, and that we wanted to make sustainable processes that got our officers out in the streets working harder and working more, and being able to put resources where we need them. And it's paying off. You're seeing that numbers are going down. We're getting out of the pandemic crime peak a little quicker than a lot of other agencies. And we're clearing a lot of homicide cases. I've always said it. We can't put an officer at every street corner, but we can sure make sure that we bring justice to all the families of individuals who've been murdered in our community. And 150 people in jail for murder over the past 15 months is probably the biggest amount that we've ever had over a period of time that small. So we're going to continue to push forward. I think we're at a much better place than we were years ago. We're at a much better place with our settlement agreement. We know that we've increased the compliance in there, and that we have sustainable process. We recently changed our use of force process, which we hope is going to make a difference and help us improve our services in a lot of variety of ways. So this is about fixing the department as a whole. It's not just about going out and just arresting individuals. That has led us to this point. And the last thing is, I want to thank all of our officers. This would not be accomplished if it wasn't for the hard work of our officers. It upsets me every day when I see people act like our officers out there not doing their jobs. Our officers are out there every single day arresting individuals in a system that we know needs an overhaul. But they do it day in and day out to make Albuquerque a better place. We have a big investment in our professional civilian staff at the police department, and they are helping us with great dividends in what they're producing for us. So a lot of thanks to all of our employees for everything they do. None of this would be accomplished if it wasn't for their hard work and the support of everybody around them. So thank you. Question?
Anything else?
Good.
Cool. I think it's great that you guys are making strides, and then you stated that, it frustrates you that it seems like people don't think you guys are doing your job. And then I know you stated prior that you guys are focused on transparency, which I think is key, and I think it's important, not only with the public, but with the media. So, this is great that you guys are doing great numbers with violent crime and property crime, but of course, homicides is still on the top of everyone's mind. And the fact that you guys are making arrests and bringing justice to the families, that's great, but there's lives that are still being lost. And I'm not saying that because we hit a record-breaking number over the past 6 years that, it's APD's fault. I don't think any of us are saying that. I can't speak for the public, but I think more so, what do you guys feel is the underlying issue? Because it continues to increase, and then on top of that, what do you guys plan to do? Like, is there going to be any new plans set in place, especially with everything that's gone on through the session? Gun control bills, a lot of them were introduced. You guys are doing what you can. You guys are collaborating with the governor. She's giving you guys funds. Like, I think the question that everyone just wants to know is, like, what's next? Like, obviously you can't control what's going on there, but the fact that that's the highest it's been over the past 6 years, there's an underlying issue. You guys are arresting people. You guys are bringing justice to the families, but at the end of the day, lives are still being lost. So what's the plan moving forward?
I think that if you look at our trends and you look back at the last 6 months, I think we are doing what we need to do, and we're moving in the right direction. I hate to always talk about this because it seems like it always jinxes us, but the month of March 2022, how many homicides? 9. How many in the month of March of 2023 thus far? 1. We were drastically lower in September, October, November, December than the previous years. We were lower in January, and I think we were about even in February, where we were down only 1. we've had the trending moving in the right direction, but we're very cautious in what we want to say, because the moment we talk about it and there's 3 homicides, everybody goes crazy and says, oh my God, they've done nothing, it's worse than ever before. We see the trending going in the direction we want. It's for a variety of reasons. I look at the average jail population, it's up. I've always said, you keep the right people in jail, you'll see results. I saw an article last week, judges are detaining more people. I applaud the judges, thank you, more people being detained. We're seeing a better trending. We're seeing that we're clearing more homicide cases. I think the LFC mentioned it at one point, that is a deterrent, because other people see that you're not going to get away with it. But also, when we're clearing those cases, how many repeat offenders have we seen in there that we've arrested and charged for 2 homicides? That's the 2 that we've figured out. There may be more in there that they were involved in that we haven't been able to solve and haven't been able to charge them with. So I don't think there's one thing we can do, but I do think that we are starting to get united. Everybody is starting to move in the right direction, and I think the trending is there. And we gotta hold on. We gotta see what happens. We know that the month of June, July, and August are typically always some of our toughest months when it comes to homicides as it starts to warm up. So we'll monitor it in the near future. We know that we have a recipe that seems to be working, and if it continues to seem to be working, we'll make adjustments as needed. But one of the big things we're doing is we know that a lot of tomorrow's homicide offenders are committing lower level repeat offending type crimes today. And that's where Deputy Chief Commander Hartsock's division is going to come in, is let's get these people, number one, the help they need right off the back, whether it's substance abuse or alcohol or whatever the issues may be, mental health. Let's get them the help they need. And that's what we're hoping to do with Commander Hartsock division, is intervene with some of those low-level people that are working their way up to potentially being homicide offenders, making sure that we get the courts involved, make sure that we hold them accountable at that level, and then hopefully they will not become those homicide offenders because we intervened early in the criminal justice system.
So do you feel like that's what I'm asking? So do you feel like that's the underlying issue, repeat offenders? And then you stated earlier that our recipe is working. What exactly is the recipe?
I think the recipe is we're arresting more individuals. We're clearing more homicides. We seem to be getting detention more often than we had in the past. I think our officers are more proactive. They're more in the community. Last year we saw a 65% increase in traffic stops. They're stopping individuals. Each traffic stop at times could lead to solving a violent crime. You look, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department stopped an individual for an expired plate, and what did that turn into? That turned into the gun from our political shootings. So I think there's a lot of things going on that are leading to us starting to finally see a little bit of a trending in the right direction, but only time will tell. And we'll have to see if all these things are working together. But like I said, there's just not one thing we could point to. It's getting officers to calls faster. It's reducing response times, and we've talked about this. It's all these things about creating an organization that is effective and functional that leads to the reduction in a lot of these crimes.
All right, so the factors that are going into what you guys plan to do for this year, right?
Yes.
You answered my question, but I think, I don't, and I'm not trying to take anyone's time. I'm glad that you're being transparent. Like I said, it's not a personal attack on APD. I can't speak for the public, but it's still a topic on everyone's mind. And I think the fact that when we're asking you questions and you're being open about it, that's what we want, and we appreciate that.
No, and you know what, and we said it, we're very clear, like, we still have a homicide problem. We can't deny that. We still have a homicide problem. Although all the other crimes are down, we still have a homicide problem, and our intent is to continue to investigate them and do everything we can and make that our number one focus.
When you say, the homicide problem, what trends within that problem are you seeing? Domestic violence, gang issues? I mean, is there one over glaring trend?
And it changes, and we'll let Commander Vega talk about it a little bit, but, last month it was domestic violence. And in previous times, we've seen where it's narcotics. And so it changes. It changes at different times of the year. There is no consistency. A year and a half ago, we talked about how many homicides we had at hotels and all the issues we saw at hotels. So it's something that's always evolving, that it's important that we stay on top of. And I think some of the meetings and some of the gathering of data that we have is what's going to help us see these trends quicker and devote resources to them. George?
Hello, my name is George Vega. I'm the commander of the Criminal Investigations Division that houses the Homicide Unit. To answer your question, I think Chief touched on pretty much everything that I would say, but we do track those trends and we do look at those trends to see if we can improve on them or catch a trend. I look back at the Muslim case, the Muslim shooting. We caught that trend pretty quick. In those cases, we were able to react quick. Those trends are constantly changing, like Chief said. Between drug rips that turn, robbery, drug rips that turn into homicides, or your domestic violence. Those are some of the trends that we're seeing. But I believe what Chief said is having more officers out there doing traffic stops is definitely helping in that area.
Can I add to that really quick as well? A trend that we're also seeing is social media. Sorry. A trend that we're also seeing is social media disputes, and I think we've talked about that before in reference to homicides. And one thing that we're also working with is we have our gun violence teams who are really focusing on that small percentage of individuals who are committing these violent crimes. So when we're talking about what are we doing to be proactive, these teams, we have one of the teams is the street team. They're in uniform, they're out on the streets, they know the individuals with warrants that they're looking for. The suppression team is looking at the same individuals that we're finding on social media popping up, whether it be a homicide investigation or a shooting investigation, and really focusing their efforts there. Then we also have our digital intelligence team, which is our professional staff who's on social media, actively looking for those individuals who are making threats online and then relaying that information to our officers.
So in a nutshell, you guys are pretty much trying to get ahead of those trends that you guys are seeing in order to prevent those homicides.
Yes, ma'am.
And what's your name, by the way?
Cecily Parker.
She's the Deputy Chief of
All right,
Investigations.
awesome, thank you.
Yeah, one thing.
Go ahead.
Just one thing too, we just had a press conference a few weeks ago about this market over at Central in Pennsylvania, 7817 Central. There's 6 homicides there in the last 2 years, so that's another trend. I think we saw fewer motels after we highlighted it a couple of years ago. We've seen a lot. We saw a lot at Coronado Park while that was in existence. I think we saw like 4 in a year and a half. So it does kind of shift around, and we try to get ahead of that, but we also have to take other actions such as nuisance abatement.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand you did this different graphic to compare 2017 to 2022. But you have the NIBRS numbers that we usually get, right?
Yeah, I could get
Yeah,
it.
they'll get you neighbors from 18 forward.
I was curious if there was anything worth mentioning with those numbers as far as like, when you considered that comparison, did overall crime go up, or, I mean, was it kind of similar to what's happening here? I know there's different, like there's crimes against society, there's different categories when it comes to the
Yeah, no,
numbers.
it's very similar to this. The biggest difference for those of you who don't know, the difference between NIBRS and the summary reporting is under summary reporting, they report the highest crime of an incident. So if there was a carjacking that turned into a homicide, the homicide would be the crime, and carjacking would not be counted. Under NIBRS, the newer system, they count all of those. So you'll get a higher number.
But you're saying like the trends are like the same?
They're pretty similar, yeah. The only thing, and I think I mentioned to you, that there's a lot more categories, and you could probably dig deeper and find things. But so I mentioned the crimes against society. I noticed the weapons law violations and dug into that a little bit. And our record staff looked at that and saw that a lot of the shot spotter activations where officers are going and picking up casings after shooting, that generates a weapons violation. So in those cases, you see that going up, but it's a good thing because it's more proactive and they're following up on more shootings.
Do you know how many non-fatal shootings there were 2022, 2021?
We could get it.
Yeah, we'd have that. I'll get that.
You know, and I think the biggest thing, though, man, we lose is 2017, when we know crime was at its highest. That's something that we've always talked about, that we've mentioned, like, we're not capturing 2017, and it's not giving the officers the notoriety and the success that they're seeing in the work that they're doing. And I think that was a big piece of losing 2017. So when Gilbert found this, we'll get it. But we'll also post the NIBRS numbers, because there's nothing to hide.
I just have one question, because I know earlier you stated something about, and I don't want to misquote you, about unreported crimes, especially when it comes to rape and what have you, but in a nutshell, are you guys still concerned about that as well? Because there are people that go through certain crimes and certain situations, and they are afraid to report it, which can still affect the number.
You know, there's always unreported crime. We know that. There always has been. I hope that some of the changes we made And some of the arguments have always been, oh, it takes so long to answer the phone, oh, we don't want to wait for an officer. We've seen big improvement in those two areas specifically, so we're hoping that it's going down, but there's always figures related to unreported crime. And JJ, you have anything you want to add? This is the numbers.
Sure. Good morning, I'm Deputy Chief J.J. Grieg with the Support Services Bureau. One of the things that I looked at when we look at the crime stats like this, and we try to look at things holistically and see, okay, was it caused by a reduction in calls for service? Was it caused by people are just not reporting crime? How I measure that is looking at the calls for service that come into the Albuquerque Police Department Emergency Communication Center. If the issue was people were not calling us or were not reporting crime, I would see a corresponding decrease in the number of calls for service over this time frame. However, that's not the case. The numbers are relatively flat. I would argue they have probably gone up because we've been pushing out online reporting and we've been pushing out telephone reporting unit and using those mechanisms to report crimes as well.
Thank you for your honesty.
Any other questions?
Before we wrap up, I just want to put a plug in. So tomorrow we already put out the press release for the use of force demonstration. If you want to just make sure, if there's anyone in your newsrooms that want to attend, cover it, attend, just kind of see what's happening. I'm hopeful that, give all of us, including myself, just a better idea of how they train on the use of force, what our policies look like. So our training academy is going to put on that presentation tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I think, up at the reality-based training center. The other thing is we're going to do something, we'll send out an advisory soon in the afternoon tomorrow. The ATF's going to be here, and we've been utilizing the NIBRS van. NIBIN, the ballistics technology. So that's another thing with these crime stats too, is we didn't really talk about all the technology with ShotSpotter, NIBIN, license plate readers, our cameras throughout the city. It's really started to come together and help us solve a lot of crimes, jump on crimes as they happen. But this van that they brought over, I think, from Arizona, give you a good look at how that technology works, how we're able to trace the casings and the bullets used in different crimes. So we do that tomorrow afternoon if you're interested.